or 200 members. So welcome participants to this session on innovations in product testing. We have Mr. Somesh, Jauhari, and Sonia Upadhyaya from Allianz. They are pioneers in testing industry, and I'll do a small introduction about them, and we'll hand over the session to Somesh and Sonia to enlighten you with the knowledge. So Somesh is a data-driven, technology-focused personnel with over 20 years of cross-functional experience in managing, delivering IT programs. So he's also passionate about scaling up organizations and global transformations. He's having an experience of handling over a team of 4,200 employees. So Somesh has excellent business acumen in building key business units in multicultural global arena with rich experience in transition IT application portfolios and services to offshore and consistent delivery. He believes in setting up a diverse and inclusive workforce with equal opportunity. He has successfully led and contributed to various organizational projects towards strengthening high performance engaged culture across organizations. His passion for work, his subtly drives change. He believes both will and power are released when you go from will to things willingly. So welcome, Somesh. So Sonia is currently Senior Manager in Global Trust Factory for Allianz India. She is heading a portfolio of 1,200 associates. She has over 15 years of experience in quality assurance, test automation, and agile practices. So she received annual award, special recognition for GTF product backlog. She is a key person in deriving product backlog at organization level in agile way, which is leading to fast achievement of goals. She's key driver behind building up GTF Academy, which is primary learning platform for deepening the technical knowledge and testing of capabilities at all levels. Sonia was nominated as member building leader of the year 2021 at Allianz Technology India. Prior to Allianz, Sonia worked at Test Manager with Accenture. During her alliance with Accenture, she was involved in managing large retail banking, core banking, and insurance accounts. These accounts were spanning across various lines of business within banking and insurance space. So over to Somesh and Sonia for doing the session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dinesh, for the introduction, and very good morning to all. But before I go, I can see some activity on the chat. Am I audible? Can someone confirm that you can hear me properly?
Yes, Somesh, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, good morning to everyone and greetings from Allianz Technology. And thanks for giving us this opportunity to present some of our innovations and practices. Also, a warm welcome. I understand there are more than 100 students from the final year of MacFast Tiruvalla. So warm welcome to you, and I hope you find this session interesting. We'll try to keep it as simple, and you try to use less of jargons so that you find it inclusive as well. I personally firmly believe that there is no better learning than sharing knowledge. And we are not just happy to share what we practice here, some of the things that we have learned from our experiences, but in this process also learn from each one of you. And I think that's the best part of forums like Masterclass, where we kind of get to exchange knowledge and ideas. Now, before I go into the topic, which is innovations in product testing at Allianz Technology India and the Global Test Factory, I think it will only be ideal that we set some context and introduce you to the world of Allianz, so that some of the terms that you would hear in the next few minutes, you can relate to them. So just to set the context, it's important to know the world of Allianz and the ecosystem that we operate in. So Allianz is a 132 years old organization and one of the strongest financial services organizations globally. We are headquartered in Munich, and we operate out of over 70 countries with over 125 million customers globally. So when we talk about these 70 countries, you would hear the word OEs, operating entities. So we operate in India, we operate in UK. So each of these countries that we operate, or the organizations that we have in these countries, are known as operating entities. And you would kind of hear, so to keep it simple, every country that we operate is also referred as an operating entity. Just to know the scale, in 2021, we were over 150,000 employees across the globe, with a total revenue of 149 billion euros and an operating profit of around 13.5 billion euros for the group. So that's the scale of Allianz, and we are kind of extremely proud to be part of this organization. So as I mentioned, Allianz operates out of the 70 countries, also known as operating entities. And historically, over the 132 years, the growth has been organic and also through operational growth through mergers and acquisitions. And as you can now imagine, at that scale, what does it mean as far as the lay of land is concerned? It means that we have an IT and application landscape which is extremely complex. It is distributed and obviously expensive to maintain, with every OE or country having its local IT infrastructure, applications supported by local teams. They have their own local processes. So where does Allianz technology fit in? So to simplify this complex landscape, obviously the group came up with initiatives around simplification and consolidation. So Allianz Technology is now the internal IT shared service provider for the Allianz Group. This means that we are responsible for all of the IT and technology needs of this global organization. So Allianz Technology India was set up back in 2003 as a captive by Allianz UK. And soon the benefits that Allianz UK got through this captive or a GIC caught the attention of other countries. And eventually the larger group in 2014, 2015. And now Allianz Technology India is fully integrated to the Allianz Technology Global Organization. And we are by far the largest IT development and capability hub for the group, with over 4,500 talents that operate out of India from Trivandrum and Pune locations. Now, typically, the journey of a captive or a GIC, especially in the financial services organization, we inherit the process and tools that the business entities or our sponsors use. And there is very little appetite for benchmarking and doing the best-in-class practices. And so was the case in our journey also when we started. The first few years were more formation, where we started forming application development, maintenance, and testing teams, which were more of an extension to each of the entities that we were doing work for. But we had one key differentiator and an aspiration, and which was quality first, to provide the best-in-class quality to our customers, in spite of being an insurance captive, to ensure that our employees experience the best of business and IT. So I think that's one differentiator and an aspiration that we always carried throughout this journey. Now, this is where Global Test Factory comes in. And if I can request us to now move into introducing Global Test Factory. Yeah, thank you. Now, Global Test Factory is one of the premier service offered by Allianz Technology India. It is owned by India, with over 650 qualified and proud test professionals. And I must stress here that we are pure play testing professionals and a community of professional testers with a diversity ratio of 52%, which becomes extremely important and beneficial for us to, especially as we look at getting as much diverse perspectives, not just in what we are testing, but how we are testing. So, sorry. And so we are working with technology and tools and processes that are benchmarked best in industry. With this, obviously this has been an evolution, and at this point of time, we are providing our test services to over 17 operating entities across the globe, which means that we have a global footprint, and we provide, or we use the follow the sun model, which is basically 24/7 service offerings across various geographies and time zones. And as I said, why would a captive want to invest in professional testing services? Normally what we have seen is the GICs, they would either offshore these services and have their focus largely on service offerings, either from a business perspective or from an application development and run and change perspective. As I mentioned, our core philosophy and design principles was quality first. Quality is not an afterthought, it is a priority. We were one of the first in the group to be CMMI certified. Again, following the same design principles, that we want to be benchmarked, not just as a insurance service provider or an internal IT company of an insurance, but to be in best in class at par with any of the services or consulting or technology boutique organizations. So as I mentioned, our test professionals can definitely vouch that the harmonized set of tools and processes that we use at the Global Test Factory is at par with the best in the market. And what the stats that you see on the right side of your slide is a clear indication that that we focus on the KPIs, and there's nothing to hide. The reason is, the more data points and KPIs that you have, it only gives you further inspiration to continually improve and evolve. Yeah. So as you can see, the key indicators, some of them are where we have 82% of automation of our regression test, that too in the CI/CD environment, with 42% of our test automation are reusable, and the in-house automation monitoring and performance testing as a service. And these are not just a reflection of a robust framework that we have now evolved and put in place, but also very, very important success factors to drive innovation culture, which is the topic of today. Yeah. So I'm very happy to also share that how we differentiate our testers from the and make them feel part of a community, a professional test community, is through a close proximity to the business. Because typically what you see is these testers work in isolation, but here we are being part of an insurance organization. We sit very closely and we work very closely with the business and IT, and with a strong support from a learning perspective. Yeah. So for example, you see the learning hours here, over 22,000 learning hours for the year, which is more than 40, in fact, it's close to 50 hours per talent or per professional in a year. And this is also equipped with our partnerships that we have with organizations like ISTQB, and I'll also cover that subsequently later. Now, we never had the requirement to benchmark ourselves or to say that why should we as an insurance captive go for a CMMI, or why should we go for partnerships with ISTQB. But I think it is the innovation and the mindset to be the best in class, which has kind of prompted us to kind of really look at ensuring that we are measuring where we are through these benchmarks. And that's what you see on top, where we've started also participating in events like this, and also trying to compete in a nice way to see as to where we stand. So in 2020, we won, we were finalists in the European Testing Awards in the space of testing, pure play testing, competing with the best in the industry. And in 2021, we were awarded by ISI for pure play testing innovation. You will hear more about it in the subsequent slides. So moving on, if you can go to the next slide. So that I hope by now you've got a gist of Allianz technology, and a full-fledged testing factory that we have now, which is providing services and owning those services from India for across the globe. Now, the topic of the day is the innovations that we have, and we will talk about that. But it's important to know how do we innovate, or rather, how do we create a culture of innovation? And I would like to spend a few minutes here. So, I mean, I firmly believe that innovation is not driven by one person or one department. It is only possible when we have an inclusive environment with a clear roadmap and an intent. Yeah. And this is how we had approached the journey of GTF, and innovation was an inherent part of it. So it's a culture that we live. Now, a culture doesn't come overnight. It has to be kind of fostered. And the way we have fostered this is by bringing in ideas from each and every member of this community or this factory. Now, you will see that in the journey of and the evolution of global test factory and what we try to do year on year. Yeah. So as you can see, we formally set up the Global Test Factory in 2015. As I said before that, we were kind of working in a decentralized model where we had one team for each operating entity. But we felt that it is not just an opportunity, but also a necessity to come together and form a practice and a center of excellence. So that was the beginning, where in 2015 we came together as one single central team. And over the next 2 years, between 2017 and 2019, the focus was to create and benchmark and remove those silos and become a more central practice. And what comes with that is a standard set of tools, processes, practices, and a very clear vision of what needs to be built over the years. Now, how is this captured is where innovation comes in. And innovation is usually, to me, the trigger for innovation is the problem statements or the challenges faced by the organization or teams. And we use that as the source for us to kind of deliberate further. And what we thought was we need to have a clear vision in terms of the capabilities we want to build for future. So we started with the focus on automation. And over the years, we further evolved where we challenged ourselves to look beyond conventional testing. For example, performance testing as a service, that too early in the life cycle. You know, performance smoke tests. We could see that the role and the profile of the testers were also changing quite rapidly. So to equip our testers to be technical, so which is SDETs and shift left, as we move into more DevOps, CI/CD, and the cloud transformation. So we also had learning as our strongest, I would say, foundation throughout. I mean, the fact that we were part of a captive, while it gave us an opportunity to understand the business and get our testers certified on the business side, we have now formalized what we call it as a GTF Academy that equips, trains, and certifies our talents globally, and not just in India, on all aspects of testing, including the applications that we use and the platforms that we use. So it's not just pure testing certifications. It is also kind of ensuring that our testers understand the business, the applications, the platforms, and are also technically strong and literate there. So in 2022, where we are globally as an organization, as we transform into being a integral part of the group is also moving towards an agile organization as a strategy. So as we move globally into the agile organization, within the testing factory, we have also organized ourselves in form of chapters, for each of the core testing functions, and also to bring further innovations, for example, infrastructure testing. So as you can see here, it has been an evolution, and this evolution has been only possible where the team together decides how do we further bring in skills and expertise to take and develop this organization forward. So this is where the product backlog as an innovation comes in. So what we do is we have a sprint size of 2 weeks for the product backlog, and this is purely a testing product backlog. And what is in the product backlog is basically ideas from each of the members of the testing community and practice, or the global test factory, where we have close to 100+ ideas which are brainstormed. For example, in this year alone, we had 22 ideas which is implemented in the last 12 months. And each of these ideas are kind of measured through outcomes, and that's how we kind of look at prioritizing these backlogs. So some of those ideas that you see are actually based on two things. One is basically the how does it make the life of the tester much more easier, where we use that time for more productive things, more intellectual things, and definitely the value that it adds to the business. So these forms the core basis in terms of how we kind of encourage our team members to kind of contribute to the backlog, and how do we prioritize them. We will be talking about some of these ideas in today's and innovations in today's session. But I'm sure that you will also get access to the videos, and so I'm not going into each one of these, but you can see some of those that you will hear today is purely based on these two parameters, which is basically how do we add value to the business, and how do we bring in how do we kind of empower our testers to make their lives easier and to kind of make the best use of their skills and intellectual property. So if you move next, I will come to the first of the use cases, or the first of the examples where from the innovation or the product backlog, which is the end-to-end automation as an innovation. Now, a lot of you might think that what is new around it. To me, every opportunity to make a difference or a saving is, or in other words, every little helps. But if you look at the profile and the day of a typical tester, there are a lot of activities where we use, in other words, the intellect, which are kind of value-adding activities, and a lot of activities which are, I would say, where you just need a pair of hands to execute. I would not call them non-value adding, but where we are not really exploiting the full potential of a professional tester. Yeah. And this was the problem statement that we put across as we were looking at having an end-to-end automation implementations where the day of the testers become more interesting and considering the nature of the task that they are performing. So when we did not have end-to-end automation, the typical day of a tester was to perform tasks like execute smoke tests, analyze the reports, logging defects, retesting defects, and sending the final report post smoke test execution is complete. So with this innovation that we are talking about, we looked each and every aspect of the day of a tester or the activities that the testers normally perform, and try to eliminate anything which was repetitive and manual. And we came up with a solution which removes the involvement of testers, test engineers during the execution and reporting. So right from triggering the execution, defect logging, defect retesting, and sending reports, all these tasks have been automated. Yeah. And the test engineers are now getting involved much earlier in the phase of life cycle, implementing defect prevention, and this improving the overall quality of the product. What does it also mean for the testers? I think here we are kind of giving them more opportunities to be closer to the business, to contribute to the activities which empower the business and also themselves, and provide a much more enriching experience to them. And I must say, this combined with the learning opportunities, we have seen that a lot of our testers have benefited by this, where they use the time that gets saved for much more value addition to the business and to themselves. We've also seen that this has helped in their career progression. A lot of our testers are now product engineers, product owners, business analysts. So it kind of not just is helping us to have better productivity and efficiency, over reducing the overall turnaround times of test cycles, but also giving an opportunity for our test professionals and talents to move up in their career. So I'm happy to also share some of the stats. For example, you can see that with this end-to-end automation, we have reduced the cost by 10%. And we have higher levels of automation coverage, which is almost 88%. Again, something that we take a lot of pride in. This has also lowered the defect leakage stats, which is now at a 1.5. And as I said, I mean, the more we automate, the less the chances of manual errors, and therefore less maintenance. And this whole framework is scalable and can be exploited beyond the use of testers as well. So with this, I'll pass it on to Sonia to take us through the rest of the innovations.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Somesh. And thank you so much, Dinesh and Sujit, for the warm welcome. And thank you, NESCOM, for this opportunity. So now let's talk about the, can you please move to the next slide? So now let's talk about infrastructure testing as an innovation. Okay, yeah, thank you. So let me start this with the help of an example. You buy an expensive car and then you drive it for maybe 100,000 miles. And then after a year or so, you go to the workshop and say, hey, something is wrong with my car. And then the technicians will look at you and say, okay, did you ever change the oil? Did you ever check the rotation of the tires? And that is exactly what we should not be doing with our IT infrastructure. If you're making this mistake, it is a horrible mistake. So IT infrastructure has to be maintained and it has to be taken care of just like we take care of our expensive cars. So that is exactly what infra testers do. Okay. Now, let me take another simple example that you have to send a simple email from your Outlook. What you have to do is that you'll have to open your Outlook, draft an email, and then click on send button. Very simple steps, like from the end user perspective. Now, typically what an infra tester would do is that we'll check that your Outlook is installed properly, and then you're able to draft an email without any error over there. And when you when you send the email goes maybe in few microseconds over there without any delays. So performance is also something to be looked for. So mainly the infra testing will ensure that the backend is taken care of so that the front end users will not face any issues. Now, moving from the definition to, let's have a look at the type of engagements we have with us. The first engagement is hybrid cloud services. Okay. Here also, let me start with a very simple example. A business stakeholder comes to you and says that my business is going to grow by 40% and my base capacity of IT infra is going to be 20 times more. But then at the same time, I have very strict rules to follow and I cannot take everything on the public cloud. So over there, the solution which you would provide would be a combination of private cloud, public cloud, because the on-prem infra is not capable of handling it. The stakeholder wants to move to cloud. So as part of hybrid cloud services, this is what we do. We cater to the cloud specific needs of the stakeholders. We take their needs and we fulfill those needs. Okay. Now, the second type of engagement is workplace services. Okay. Here also I have a simple example. One fine day you wake up and you are not able to log into a virtual machine. How do you feel? And the impact, when I talk in terms of Allianz, and Somesh talked about our geography and the scale of our organization. So anyway, 17 countries would be impacted. Users won't be able to log in and carry on there with their day-to-day work. So the impact is very big over there. So as part of workplace services, what we ensure is that all the users can connect anywhere to the Allianz systems, anywhere in the world to the Allianz systems. So we take care of devices like one device, one device maybe looks like a simple personal laptop, but at the same time, the user would be having comfort of joining anywhere from any network to the Allianz network. So that is what we take care of as part of workplace services. Now, let me move to the identity and access management. Here also, let me take a very simple example that you're a claim handler and you're not able to log into the claim financial application itself. Your access is revoked and you're on a call. Someone wants to file his or her claim related to the health insurance and that person is in a hurry. It's an urgency. How would you do it? Right? So such type of requirements is what identity and access management handles. The access related stuff, the directory related stuff, security groups and all is taken care of as part of IAM. Now let's move to cognitive automation. So we all know about production incidents and failures. Now, how it sound to you that your production incidents are resolved automatically? Sounds good? Yes. So that is what we do at Allianz. We have a cognitive automation tool which automatically assigns the incidents and takes care of those incidents automatically and no manual intervention is required. So that is cognitive automation. Now, having said that, okay, these are the engagements, but what you do with these engagements. Why infra? Why are you doing infra? What are the benefits out of it? Okay. Now, talking about the benefits, the first one is high stability and high availability. The systems have to be highly available and highly stable so that the production downtime is minimum and the customer experience is good. And then early detection of production failures also reduces the production downtime. And the third one is that the performance should be good. If the performance is not good, then the user experience is not good at the end. Okay. Now, all of these benefits which I have cited, let me do one thing. Let me take you through a business case on production monitoring via automated reporting. Okay. So, as part of this report, as part of this business case, what I'm going to explain is that just assume that you're looking at the day-to-day activities of your onboarding team, who takes the requirements, okay, submits the requirement, the cloud-specific requirements on a tool, and then those requirements are assigned to the particular teams, and the allocation of the system happens. Now, all of this is done via more than 20 services. Now, in order to test this, what we have done is that we have created a mock service. So what that mock service does is that it acts as a customer, it submits the order and ensures that the order is submitted successfully. Now in production, if that order is not submitted successfully, then what that service would do is that it will do multi-layer reporting there. It will send one detailed report to product team, developers, and backend team with a step-by-step information on which steps were successful, which step was not successful, where exactly things went wrong, with the snapshots and with the timestamp. Okay. And then the another piece of information will go to the onboarding team and will go to the business stakeholders. An overall dashboard of out of these services, which services are up and running into the production now, and which services impacted. Apart from these two messages, the incidents would also be logged in to the and assigned to the respective stakeholders to take care of. So this is how the business case works. Now let's have a look at the figures. So for this particular business case, we cater to 800 plus customer products. And then we have 20 plus production monitoring services. And then we do 9K plus validations and 4.8K iterations per month. That is a humongous manual task. Just imagine if it is being done manually. So you can also see how much of effort also we are saying. Apart from effort, let's say we look at the incidents we have been able to save. So we have been able to prevent. We have been able to prevent more than 250 P1 and P2 incidents in H1 of 21. Okay. So that is all from the infrastructure testing as an innovation. So I'd like to move to the next topic now. Can you please move to, yeah, thank you. Okay, so the next topic is performance testing as a service, as an innovation. Okay, so we all know what performance is. So let it be performance related to appraisal, let it be a performance related to application or software or infrastructure. Performance is appealing word. So that is why we have brought up this topic, performance testing as a service, as an innovation for you. Okay. Now let's have a look at it. Why are we calling it as an innovation? Okay. Now, in order to understand the full context here, I'll quickly take you through our older way of working. The older way of working was that we had dedicated performance engineers and dedicated licenses of the tool assigned to a project. That meant if an engagement was running for a year, so the X number of performance engineers and then the Y number of the licensed tools were hard fixed with their project. So even if the testing was being carried out effectively for 3 to 4 months, performance testing was carried out only for that duration, but then the resources were locked there. So what we observed is that was not a cost optimization way of working. Now let's look at the new model which we have come up with. We call it as pay-as-you-go model or performance testing as a service model. So as part of this, what we have done is that we have a pool of SMEs, and that is our performance testing COE, Center of Excellence. And then we have a pool of licenses which rest on cloud and which are floating licenses. Now, whenever any requirement would come in, so for example, any project would need performance testing to be carried out for 3 months, and with X number of performance engineers and Y number of licenses. So that project would be assigned only those resources. So anyway, what we get over there is that we get cost optimization. Cost is optimized over there. We get resource optimization. Because if performance engineers are part of a project for 12 months, but effectively if they're working for 4 to 5 months, for 7 months, they are not so effective. Okay? So the resource optimization also happens over there. And now on a lighter note, let me also share one thing. So when I was talking about the infra testing, so I told you that we test cloud, we test our tools, licenses. Now as part of performance testing as a service, I'm customer there, so I'm testimony to my own systems. So my floating licenses, when those are shared with the respective projects, so the projects use those as they pay as they go and they use as they go. So it means that only for the performance execution run, only for that duration they have to pay for the licenses. Okay. Now, having said that, we saw cost optimization, we saw resource optimization, and we also saw that how in-house we are testimony to our own work. Okay. Now, let me also talk about when we're talking about the infra testing being carried out in-house. So, for example, if I had to carry on my testing for Australia region, so I won't be creating a lot in India lab itself, or India data center itself. My load would come from the Singapore. So what we do is that we take the real-time loads from the real data centers. And in a way, it caters to the specific testing scenarios we want to carry out for performance testing. And also our performance testing has been fully automated right from the performance smoke test itself. So those are a few of the features of performance testing as a service, as an innovation. Now let me illustrate it with the help of a mid-size performance testing engagement with 2 applications and then 8 to 10 automated scripts and 8 releases per year. So what we were able to achieve is 23% to 35% reduction in annual budget through performance testing as a service. Okay, and then of course, with a good quality of the very good quality of the delivery, and we were able to find issues, and we were able to resolve those issues, and we were able to fine-tune our system from the performance perspective. So that was from an engagement perspective. Now let me look at it from a bigger picture, from the Allianz technology perspective, from the global test factory perspective. So setting up COE and then setting up the tools, taking care of those tools, of course, it comes with an investment. Now, as you can see that our break-even point came within a duration of 4 to 6 months. So 17% returns on ROI after it. So at this point of time, our ROI is 17%. So for a service-based company, it might sound like a low value. But if I talk about from a captive perspective, 17% is a big amount. Okay, so now performance testing as a service So, and has been a very successful model in our company. And then we have testimonies from from a lot of satisfied customers. And then most of them have come back and mentioned that it's a very optimized way of working. The resource satisfaction is high. And then the effectiveness of the testing is also high. So what would you expect more than this when your stakeholders are happy and really appreciating your model? So that is all about performance testing as a service, as an innovation. So let's move to the conclusion then. If you could please move to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. Now I'll quickly conclude what Somesh and myself have covered. So what GTF is and how we have evolved from a decentralized testing hub to the best in class we are right now. How eventually we have formed our automation center chapter and performance chapter, and then various other chapters within Global Test Factory. And then also Somesh touched upon that how we carry out our product backlog very effectively by brainstorming, by seeing that what is required for the engagements in upcoming 3 months, upcoming 6 months, what is the need of the hour, and accordingly we come up with solutions. And then we touched upon automation and then performance testing and infra testing. So that is all we have covered in this session. So thank you once again. And I'll hand it over to Dinesh now for Q&A.
Thanks, Sonia. So to the participants, if you have questions, you can post on the Q&A window. So also I have received a few questions on my private chat, so I'll read that to Somesh and Sonia. So first question I will post to Somesh. Somesh, how do you manage UAT?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Dinesh. So typically, user acceptance test is something where the business users accept the final product before it goes to production, right? So, and it is not typically the IT team which are doing it. So as I said, I mean, Allianz Technology is the IT partner for the group. Having said that, I mean, we work very closely with the business, So, and these innovations would be of no use that where you see one part of the organization benefiting from it and the other part not. So we still look at opportunities where the automated regression tests can be exploited by the business users. A lot of our business users who are doing the UAT are now equipped with these automated test packs, so they can also kind of leverage those assets that we already have and reuse those assets. So I mean, while we don't execute because it's more the business perspective and business accepting the product, we kind of support them with the automation framework and the scripts that we have created. So it can be then tweaked by the business and executed, thereby obviously saving a lot of their time and benefiting from reuse of what we have already developed.
One question on the chat, how this can be handled in a startup when only one tester is available? So Sonia, you want to take that question?
So you mean the performance? The question is not clear. If you could please.
Very clear, yes. Mr. Sabiri Shashu had posted this question. Sabrish, can you be a little more specific here? How can this be handled in a startup when only one tester is available?
So are you talking about automation here?
Yeah, it is test coverage.
Okay, and Ashok, it would be really good if you could please elaborate. So when you're talking about test coverage, okay, so you are asking if you have only one tester, okay, in your product, in a startup, for the product, and how your coverage can be more effective. That is what you mean, right? Okay. Okay, fine, Ashok. Yeah, thank you for the question. And Ashok, I would say that we are talking about the product testing here, and there are two key aspects to look at it, Ashok. The first one is that the tester has to have a very good domain knowledge. There has to have very good knowledge of the end-to-end knowledge of the domain, so that so that he doesn't miss anything, and any scenario does not fall in cracks over there. So having very good domain knowledge is one part. And the other part, I would say, is that since most of us are working in Agile, today is everyone is into Agile ways of working. So setting up a clear KPIs for you, a clear quality KPIs for you is really important. So if you have these two processes clearly set up, your coverage should be good. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sonia. So another question is on the slide. So I had a question. I'm just reading that question. Had a question on the slide you shared on test factory KPIs. How do you rate them against industry benchmarks? Like, what's the industry benchmark for automation percentage? So it's been asked by Rimli Kar Rakshit.
So industry benchmark is 70, is anything is well accepted, which is more than 75%.
Okay.
Is it
Thank
only,
you.
If I may add, I think, I mean, while as a captive, it was initially not an incentive for us to be really looking at competing with the industry. I think the driver was more in terms of looking at how we can add value to the business, and obviously automation is and these KPIs only give us those data points for us to kind of really measure the areas that we can kind of further challenge and grow. One of those innovations that came was, again, I mean, ideas that came where from the testers, that can we also look at outside in view more frequently and more regularly. So, and then we started engaging more and also giving that kind of benchmark to see it in terms of effectiveness, but also using those experience and interaction with the industry to see as to what more we can add to this. But yes, I mean, I think Sonia has mentioned about the benchmark, but in the process of innovation, I think the use of these KPIs is more to kind of further challenge ourselves and to identify areas of further improvements.
There's one question from Mania. If possible to handle or execute corner scenarios or business related cases like calculation in automation testing?
Yes, of course, it is possible. Is it only related to the calculations? Then of course it is possible.
Okay, and hi Somesh, thank you for the nice webinar. Please suggest some key best practices of collecting non-functional requirements and cascading the same to test coverage. Yeah,
I think when we talk about non-functional requirements, usually it is, I mean, it's assumed. Yeah. So in terms of whether it's performance or whether it is even the user experience, I think as we evolve, and also the fact that let's take it. I mean, as a captive, you have certain, I would say, opportunities. You have certain, I would say, challenges or constraints. And it's best that we play on the strengths, while we look at opportunities to further improve. And one of those strengths or the opportunities is the proximity to the business and the ability to and the access to see things working. So if you've developed something, you just move across the building or the road and you see the real users using that, and getting the real life experience from the users. And I think that's where the role of the testers become much more important and critical, because they kind of act as a bridge between business and technology. And with shift left, I think these inputs that come from the business and the testers go in, especially for the non-functional requirements. So our templates now capture not just the functional requirements, but very specifically the non-functional requirements also. And obviously now with these KPIs, it makes it even more kind of enriching, where we can see that these non-functional requirements can also be measured. Yeah.
Yes. And thank you, Somesh. And to add over there, so we all are working using Apex, using user stories. So what the new evolution is that as part of Apex itself and as part of the acceptance criteria for the user story itself, the template has been updated. If there is an impact on performance for that component, then the NFRs have to be mentioned over there. So that is a new evolution. And now if you're a tester and if you do not see that present over there, you should go back and question it. One way is that is taken care of. And then second part I would say is that a tester always should have a very good understanding of the project architecture and should be involved in those discussions. And when you're part of that group and when you're part of those discussions and you follow your Epic user story, then in a way, you know how your NFRs are going to take shape, what all components would be impacted, and how would you be able to give your effective coverage over there. Yeah, thank you. We can move to the next one.
We'll take one more question and probably then we can conclude. So also to other questions that were unanswered, I'll say we will post this in NASCOM community and your questions will be answered there. So I'm taking the last question. How do you manage the shift left approach if the scope is not finalized? And what's your approach of SAP testing and tools?
If you could please repeat, how do you manage your shift left approach if your
scope is not finalized? And
scope is not.
And what's your approach of SAP testing and tools?
Okay. Somesh, is it okay if I take this?
Yeah, please go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, I have a couple of suggestions over there. And maybe I'll take the examples what we have been doing as part of Allianz technology. So our shift left approach. So few of our shift left approaches include one of these I just called out for performance testing, right? The next one is that you do a smoke. I'll come to your point also, but first let me just clearly touch upon the shift left approaches we cover. So doing a smoke test and stabilizing your environments on daily basis is a shift left approach. For every sprint, doing the early regression and doing the multi-regressions is a shift left approach. Now, doing a daily performance smoke test is a shift left approach because you are penetrating into the system before it breaks down and you are able to stabilize it. Okay. Now let me come to your particular question that your scope is not clear. If your scope is not clear, it means you don't have defined epics or user stories for a particular area. And if that is the case, then as I mentioned, testers have to be involved from day one into the project. So when the architecture itself is being defined, when the end-to-end decision on epics is being taken care of, in which PI, which epic, what would be the dependency on which epic, and so, there itself, the penetration should happen. And now since your question is very much specific to SAP, so for SAP, the best practice we follow is the standard operating procedure. So every SAP project would have that. Now, as part of that, you have to ensure that the prerequisite itself should be that your scope is clearly defined over there. Now, I'll come to the second part. Now, I totally understand that sometimes the business, to start with, the business doesn't have a very good clarity of how the final product would look like, but then we start with the basic understand. And then the scope is not fully visible at that point of time. So the best way to start for the SAP testing at that point is that, again, early involvement, ensuring that you sit with your architects and then you understand each and every piece of your SOP, and then you test as much possible at that point of time. That is what best can be done when your scope is not clear. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sonia. So, Somesh, any last concluding remarks from you?
Yeah, firstly, I mean, again, on behalf of Allianz Technology, me and Sonia, thanks for this opportunity and thanks for listening in. And I must say, the interactions and the questions were extremely of high quality. And as Dinesh said, we will definitely try and come back to you with responses for the unanswered questions also. I hope you found the session useful. In fact, some of the questions, as I said, were also quite insightful, and it kind of obviously brings us to the point that, I mean, it's equal learning for us also in terms of inputs. But yes, I mean, the topic was about innovation, and as I said, I mean, the key takeaways or learnings for us is a culture of innovation, which comes through inclusion. And continuous feedback and from the business, from your own people, and with the right combination of personal and professional development. I think that's how it has worked for us. Everything else will fall in place. And I know this was the first of the sessions. We have 2 more sessions to go, and we look forward for similar support and inputs from the community. So thank you again to NASSCOM and to everyone who's dialed in.
Thank you so much, Somesh. So I'll request Vijay to do the vote of thanks and close the session.
Thank you, Dinesh. First of all, it's being a pleasure that, on a busy Monday, we could able to have these many audience listening from the forenoon on this sort of a very highly efficient topic, which you have been looking for a long time. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much, Jauhari. It's like, he's the head of the branch of Allianz Technologies. And have taken so much of patience and time in spending 1.5 hours with us today, along with this team. And the session was so practical, and it was like, giving a lot of impact to the attendees. I think we have got around 350 plus attendees today. So it was a very effective session. And as everybody said, it's a continuous, it's a series, it's a masterclass series, which we have planned, 2 more in the pipeline. So thank you so much, Somesh, for joining us today. And also Sonia Upadhyaya, the Global Test Factory Senior Manager, for joining us today for an enlightening speech, as well as taking you through the process. And I think the highlight is like, there is a skill development which actually Allianz has. So I don't know how many of others have been known to this. I think which is something which the testing community needs to be known, and more people needs to be, how we actually bring in more employability to this. This is all part of that. So bringing that to the limelight is also a good thing to do. So thank you, Sonia, for taking us time and doing this session with us. And I also really wanted to thank 2-3 other members who are actually, behind the screen, which has been supporting us all these months to, make this happen. None other than, Rani and also Ando. Without their support, this would not have been possible, because you have been designing this for a quite long time. But eventually the results was very good because of the participation, without the effectiveness of the session and the content, it really matters. So thank you everyone, like Rani, Ando, and everyone from Allianz, so that to make this happen. And my own colleague Dinesh, who was actually supporting this, because I had some issue in the morning during the connectivity, which I couldn't able to make through. So that's why I got missed maybe 15 minutes while we are actually starting it. So that's also has happened. And to all the audience, we have been the recordings will be there in our YouTube channel, as well as in the NASSCOM community. So Allianz has requested, consider, they could able to answer any of your questions. So We will be happy to take some questions, but they are also make it live and attend market. So the invite. And one more, thank you all the students who have joined from there also. So look forward to the next session. Thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks everyone. I'll end the webinar now.